All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. Got the Friday slate here for you guys. Chuck, what are your initial thoughts for this slate?
Well, playing lots of Dallas Mavericks today. Luka Doncic is out, and Dante Exum out actually affects a little bit more than I think people will realize. So, I mean, Kyrie Irving is the obvious beneficiary. But before getting into the rest of the injury news, just very quickly, if you're using tools like figuring out when players are off the court, like Luka Doncic, it's important to put Kyrie on the court. And then since Dante Exum is on the court when Luka's off, we have to make sure Dante Exum's off the court as well. So the biggest beneficiaries in order are Tim Hardaway, Derek Lively, Derek Jones, and then Josh Green. And then Jaden Hardy, he's going to be pretty popular today, but we have a very small sample size of only 20 minutes in this situation with Dante and Luka out with Kyrie in. And so I think Jaden Hardy is going to look great. But Tim Hardaway, Lively, Derek Jones, and Josh Green in order are the biggest beneficiaries. And then Joel Embiid was a random late scratch last time, which was super annoying. Him and Tyrese Maxey are both questionable. I think Tyrese Maxey popped up on the injury report a little bit later. So kind of usually lean towards those guys being out. Maybe Joel Embiid plays, but Tyrese Maxey's out, but it's something to keep in mind. Devin Booker's out. Victor Wembanyama is missing today. I'm not quite sure who's going to be the main beneficiary on the Spurs since the prices are a little bit weird. And then a couple guys, Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, are both questionable for the Nuggets. And I think that's pretty much the most important stuff. And Trey Murphy plans to play for the Pelicans.
I want to start with the Spurs, and then we'll dive into Dallas a little bit more. So for me, I think it's kind of – oh, you can't hear me? Okay, I'll switch. You can hear me on this one, right? Fine. Good. Okay. So I want to start with the Spurs, and then we'll circle back to Dallas because I do think it's kind of clear who it's going to be. I think it's Zach Collins. I think it's Keldon Johnson, and then Devin Vassell, I think, also benefits. I think those are the clear-cut ones. It's just which other pieces step up, like where's the value at, and that might be difficult to figure out. But like looking at the data with Wemby off the court, I think it just goes back to last year where Zach Collins was a point per minute stud, and he has been getting more minutes now recently. And if he gets 33 minutes, I think he's going to crush. And same thing for Keldon Johnson. Like he's just back into that same role that he was in last year at this time.
Yeah, I think I said that. Just the pricing, especially on DraftKings, Keldon Johnson's up to 7.5K. FanDuel, he's 7K, which 7K is a fantastic price, especially if he's coming in at the 14% ownership that we're looking at on the model. And then an interesting player at the bottom of the model is Charles Bassey. Now, if his price was any cheaper, he would be a very, very good value play. But at 4,600 on both sites, especially on FanDuel, it's kind of tough to get there at center. On DraftKings, I think if you're making a lot of lineups, we can take some shots at 1%.
Yeah, we only even project to get 13 minutes, which we definitely need, I think, a little bit more out of that at this price tag for sure. Let's go ahead and just talking to Dallas a little bit more. So what were your collective thoughts on Hardy? Were you going to be on him or maybe not? Or obviously, if you're max entering, probably somewhat. But I guess how would you rank it? Would you go Hardy or Green first and foremost?
I think it's Josh Green over Hardy. Okay. I'm assuming Josh Green is going to start and Hardy probably comes off the bench. But if Hardy's in the starting lineup, I mean, he's 3,300 on DraftKings. Yeah. We haven't projected for 54% ownership on over there, 30% on FanDuel at 3,700. I'm going to be interested in Hardy, but it's kind of tough if the whole field's getting there. I mean, I think a big question is how many Mavericks are we comfortable playing in our lineups? On DraftKings, I was getting a lot of lineups with 5. I have it limited to 4, and basically every DraftKings lineup has 4. On FanDuel, I'm getting 2 to 3, some with 4.
That's interesting to me because I felt it was probably Josh Green. Probably Grant Williams feels very safe at that price tag to me. He's not pulling in too much chalk. And then Kyrie, we're just playing him, especially on FanDuel where it's 8.3. Like that's just probably a lock. But I don't know. To me, it was tough to get to more than 3 just because I don't know. I feel like we can't trust them. Maybe Derek Lively gets a little bit of a bump at his price tag. He's fine. But I don't know. It feels weird trusting more than one of those kind of secondary players like Josh Green, like Hardy, maybe Curry. Tim Hardaway Jr. is fine in GPPs, especially on FanDuel. But Derek Jones, we've seen have good games. Like to me, it's just like too much of a guessing game almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're like even Josh Green, if he's in the starting lineup, he's
Mhm.
still. I don't think he's a lock. Like he is still a GPP play. I think Kyrie, not that anyone is safe in DFS, but he's
Yeah.
obviously the safest player, and everyone else is just so cheap. And so the fourth player that I was getting after Josh Green and Jaden Hardy was Derek Jones Jr. And
Okay.
then Grant Williams, he's going to pull some ownership. I'm not that excited to get to Grant Williams. I think I'd rather get to the other guys. He's not really the type of player who benefits from more usage in these types of
Yeah.
situations. And so if he's pulling a bunch of ownership, I think that's the kind of, I mean, he's really not. He's actually pulling
Yeah.
18%,
18. Yeah.
11%. But he's still kind of the guy I'd like to get away from a little bit. And looks like Seth Curry pulling 20% ownership on DraftKings at the flat minimum price. So it's just, I think we just mix these guys up. If you're only making one lineup, I think it should probably start with Kyrie Irving. And
Mhm.
then just based on the salary you get, I mean, they're all so cheap. I think you just mix up the rest of the guys.
Yeah. And so pretty much the takeaway here is who's ever starting for the value play there, probably jam them in, and then the other ones probably still maybe fit in there. Like, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, and it gets even more muddy because Tim Hardaway is not even guaranteed to play today. So if Tim Hardaway's out, Jose Morales in the chat, it's good for everyone else, a little more confidence. But this team is just pulling so much ownership, and it's honestly kind of random who's going to have the good games from the cheap guys. So just kind of be careful if you're playing a bunch of them, which we probably should be.
Yeah, I agreed there. I didn't mention for the Spurs, Doug McDermott's out as well, which he's someone that could get minutes in that situation. So backup wise, there's going to be more minutes available. Kind of like what you just mentioned with Exum being out, like that could just secure some of the value a little bit more. And then just real quickly, I mean, Porzingis. Let's talk about Boston real quick. I know we've seen this a bunch now, but everyone's probably priced up enough. You don't see any value here, or do you? For Boston?
Not necessarily value since he's above 6K, but I'm pretty interested in Al Horford as a GPP play coming in at less than 10% ownership on both sites. Last year, he did very well in this role, and we've seen him crush without Porzingis on the court the last few games. So I don't mind getting there if the field isn't really going to get there that much.
Okay, perfect. And then any other spots that you wanted to touch on before we get into the position by position breakdown?
It's just this Philadelphia thing. We're not going to know until we have confirmation on Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, but Joel Embiid was ruled out. The whole field went towards the Sixers, and basically everyone failed except for DeAnthony Melton. So we did just get news that Tim Hardaway is ruled out. So we'll see the model update in a few minutes to see if anyone jumps in value.
It's probably going to be Curry. Maybe not. I don't know.
It just Curry's not going to start. Tim Hardaway probably wasn't going to start either. And so I think that Seth Curry's a pretty safe bet to fill in that bench role for Tim Hardaway. And he's a player that can get hot. He might do nothing, but he's 3K. So it's kind of like every three he hits is 1 point of value. We really don't need much from him to be in the winning lineup. And then the Sixers, I think we just need to see the news because Paul Reed hasn't been starting. They're starting like Batum and Marcus Morris. Yeah. And I think Batum kind of turned his ankle or something last game. He played 14 minutes. Marcus Morris is having somewhat of a resurgence. Not that he had like a great game or anything, but for his price, he did pretty well. And then Tobias Harris just completely fell flat on his face. And so if those guys are ruled out, I'm interested to see what their ownerships are going to come in at, because I think if it's the same spot, I think we're just going right back to the secondary Philadelphia guys.
Yeah, I would agree. And let's just say if Embiid's in if Embiid's out and Maxey's in, would you be loading up on Maxey as well, or is he just a little bit too high priced?
It's kind of like, I mean, because Kyrie is going to be the obvious play, right? And if Embiid's out, I think Tyrese Maxey's kind of a pivot. But, I mean, he put up 33 real points, I believe, in the last game. He's going to look pretty good. I'd have to see what his ownership came in at, but I'm pretty sure I'd be very happy to take some shots on him, Tobias, DeAnthony Melton, especially Tobias over on FanDuel. He's a little bit too cheap.
Yeah, I gotcha. All right, one more question real quick on Dallas because we got that news. So yesterday, and I don't know, the other slate with Charlotte, I was kind of saying I like PJ Washington more in the second unit. Is there anyone here that you would like better that you would think would just have a little bit more usage if they're in the second unit? To me, it's probably Hardy if we knew for sure he was going to get the minutes, but I kind of want to get your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. So Jason Kidd is one of the weirdest coaches in the NBA. Jaden Hardy's pretty good at basketball, like real life basketball, and he's not getting the playing time. But if he's going to have the opportunity to come off the bench and play himself into more minutes possibly. I mean, we haven't projected for 23. If he gets 23 minutes at 3,300, I think that's great. I think he has the potential to play more. But yeah, it would be Jaden Hardy and Seth Curry, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. And then let's see, stack that game. Which game in particular there, Courtney? And then we got Jose only playing one lineup tonight. Would you suggest adding Jokic, or is it better to fade him? We can talk about Jokic real quick.
We have so much value. There's so many guys under 4K playable on DraftKings, and Jokic is showing 10% ownership. It's only a 6-game slate. It seems like Jokic is a pretty great play. Phoenix is missing Devin Booker. It's only a 3-point spread in Denver's favor. So I had Jokic in my dummy build earlier. I imagine I'm going to get to a bunch of him in my lineup. So I think he's a great play.
That just was someone confirming the Jason Kidd stuff. That's great. I like that comment. All right, so we'll go ahead and get into the position by position breakdown here. We'll see if Chuck can hear me on the guard slide first. Can you or not hear me on the slide? No? Okay, I gotcha. So we'll just do this. All right, so we're going to be in the guards here. I'm going to sort by DraftKings guards as always. And so looking at the top plays at the guard position, it is Jaden Hardy for value. We'll sort by OF Index first. Kyrie Irving, Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown, Bane, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Brunson. And when we go down this list, like maybe Drew Holiday, maybe Cole Anthony as like fair and balanced plays, but it really seems like the clear-cut way to go is paying up for Kyrie and then probably going with the value. Is that how you see it, or do you see anyone else in this mid-tier that could be worthwhile?
So Julius Randle was questionable. He said he's going to try to play. I was going to say, if Julius is out, pretty sure this would benefit Jalen Brunson. He would become a pretty good play there. Brandon Ingram, it's just his price isn't bad, but CJ McCollum is back, so it's a little tough. Jaylen Brown, his price I think is appropriate, and he's capable of blowing up on any night. But none of these guys really seem like priorities, right? I guess Tyrese Maxey might be if Joel Embiid is ruled out.
Yep.
But I don't think we can go wrong with Kyrie tonight. Like, sure, he could fail. You could fade like the super chalk, and if he has a bad game, someone else has a good game, then it's really going to help you. But I don't think that's the move tonight. Not on FanDuel anyway.
Yeah. Any love for any of the Phoenix guards / forwards that we have? Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon, Jordan Goodwin. They all have some ownership. That's kind of why I'm asking. They're not popping up too much value-wise. I mean, Grayson Allen's kind of popping up as a decent value play, and then the rest are just meh.
Like Eric Gordon at 5,900 on DraftKings, it kind of seems a little bit high, right? But it's probably closer to his appropriate price, because if he was 5,300 like he was on FanDuel, he'd probably be the chalk. Probably be pretty close to chalk over on DraftKings. Grayson Allen, I mean, a couple of these guys are showing up as okay values. Grayson Allen's pretty high, number 3 in guard value. Don't mind taking shots there. And then Eric Gordon, I mean, he's a boomer bust guy. Wouldn't be too bad either.
Yeah. So you mentioned Grayson Allen's the 3rd best guard value. After that, we obviously have Brandon Ingram, Sohan. On the top end, it's Hardy, but really not too crazy in terms of value. Maybe Branham is popping up a little bit, but it just really feels like we're going Kyrie Hardy on the top end, just eating the chalk and maybe trying to figure it out elsewhere.
Yeah, it kind of feels like we have a little bit more value at the forward position. It's like 3 Dallas guys plus Grayson Allen and Josh Okogie. And so that might be the move there at the guard spot.
As the day started, I do just want to mention, I did think I was going to get to Jalen Brunson. He's just kind of been crushing it just on this slate. I was like, I want to chase the ceiling game. But I mean, I don't know. Now with this value open up, I don't know if I want to lose the position eligibility there. You know, I don't want to eat a guard position, I don't think, to get to him.
Well, it's kind of interesting that sorting by value, Jalen Brunson is not on like the first page, right? Like you have to scroll down to see him. And so that's always something to pay attention to, even though his OF index is pretty good.
Yeah. Let's just sort by FanDuel as well. Basically all of the exact same plays popping up there as well. Eric Gordon popping up a little bit better there. Yeah, let's just go ahead and move on to the forwards. I'll see if we have any questions here as I do that. Here we go. He's talking Dallas, Memphis. So yeah, do you want to stack Dallas, Memphis at all? To me, it's tough to get to anyone really on Memphis in general because they're spreading out their production. Really, I mean, Bane can have a good game. Jaren Jackson can obviously have a good game. I think Bismack should be able to have a good game against Dallas, but I don't know. The pricing is not the best. Derrick Rose is actually pulling in as chalk.
Oh man, I I hate the Derrick Rose chalk. If he was still 4,200, I wouldn't mind it, but
Mhm.
4,900 for Derrick Rose. We have enough other value. I don't think that we have to get there as much as a field. Like, I'm pretty sure I'll probably like he's still showing up in my builds, but not 30%.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that I'm going to have a few lineups with 4 Dallas guys, and
Yeah.
most of the time we want to run it back with a Memphis guy, and it does look like Derrick Rose is that guy for me in a bunch of my
Mhm.
lineups. But it's a 7 point spread, and the Dallas guys are so cheap, and they're kind of shorthanded that other than Kyrie, I don't think we have to really be worried about blowout run with a few of these guys.
Mhm.
And so I don't know. I mean, Jaren Jackson's price, he's back up to 8K. He seems okay. Desmond Bain is pulling ownership at what seems like a high price, but I mean, it's a pretty good
Yeah.
matchup for everyone here.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting to some slivers of Biombo. He's been playing 30 minutes. He had 5 turnovers in the last game. That's probably not going to happen again. But that'd be banking on him getting the 30 minutes, which the data doesn't have him at right now. So a little bit of a concern there, I guess.
Well, I was about to say, I was looking forward to hearing who your favorite centers today, because that was the spot I was having the most difficulty with outside of
Yeah.
Jokic, and we just got news that Embiid is out. So
Okay. That makes it honestly more difficult, really.
yeah,
Probably
probably.
paying up for Jokic, honestly.
I was gonna say, I think it bumps up Jokic's ownership. I mean, we were showing 10%. I feel like it would have been higher than 10% regardless of this news. But now, I mean, Jokic could come in as high as maybe 30% on this slate. Wouldn't surprise me.
Let's talk about the center position before we get into forwards. Then I'm going to refresh the data. Oh, it's a fun slate. So we'll talk about Philly again. So with him beat out, I think Maxey gets a bump, but he's priced up. Harris should be able to hit value, but last time he failed us, not the best matchup. Batum also probably should be able to hit value. Is Paul Reed going to be chalk or no? Are people not happy with Paul Reed?
Well, the unfortunate thing with Paul Reed is, so I think people jammed him in last slate because the last time Embiid was out, Paul Reed didn't start, but he still played good minutes off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw Mo Bamba check in before Paul Reed, and if Mo Bamba didn't get into foul trouble, I'm not sure what Paul Reed's minutes would have looked like.
Okay.
And so it's kind of tough. If no one's playing Paul Reed, I'm going to take some shots. If he becomes the mega chalk, then I'm still going to play him, but it's going to be a little bit more scary, I guess. If no one's playing him, we have more of a benefit if Nick Nurse decides not to be a jerk tonight. And we did just get another update from Nick Nurse. Tyrese Maxey's a game time decision and quote unquote struggling. So I really lean towards Maxey being out now. And so it's like now we have 2 teams, Dallas and Philly, with just all the value on the slate. And I think DeAnthony Melton, if Maxey's out, is the number one beneficiary.
Yeah, I'm just going to put him into a build right now because I think that's just too good.
And I'm wondering if Patrick Beverley draws the start at the point guard position now. And at 4K, it's not a bad shot take. He had a pretty good game last time.
Yeah, what minutes would we expect him to get up to? 30? Like, is that, or will he still be at like 25-ish?
The thing is, like, they have forwards, but they don't really have another, unless the model has someone else that's going to pop up here. I mean, Furkan Korkmaz is like the only other guard I can think of on this team besides Melton and Beverly.
Well, I would say Harris can have the ball in his hands too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Harris is looking like one of my favorite plays of the day now, especially on FanDuel at 6,300.
I mean, even at 6.9, he's still not bad on DraftKings. But yeah, 63 seems way too cheap now. Like, he should be very safe there.
Yeah, I mean, the 6,900, like, so I jammed in Harris the last time this happened, and he had an awful game. But looking at, like, the top players, like Petty Theft, number 1 NBA DFS player, he played 100% Tobias Harris in his high-stakes entries. And so it didn't work out. It's the right move. It's a very similar situation today. It's a tougher game against Boston, but I don't think we should look at Harris having that bad last game not to play him. I think we still want to play him, especially if other people are nervous to play him.
Yeah. Is there a center, like, let's say if we get news that Covington's starting at center, would you want to be on him at 4.1?
Oh, man, it's so tough to predict this, like,
yeah,
between Covington, Batum, and Marcus Morris.
Right.
I think we just mix them up, see if maybe the model prefers one over the other. Right now, it looks like it prefers Batum, but we'll have to see Covington and Morris's minutes adjust. It's a tough one, man.
Yeah, Ken's saying time to withdraw entries. I actually disagree. I think these are the ones that I like to attack the most because it just takes a little bit longer to figure out like which players you want to be on. But once you do, that's kind of a decent edge, really.
I agree. Like, I do think it's a little bit more random with all these
Mhm.
value plays. Anyone could go off, especially with the Dallas guys. But I mean, the model is probably going to prefer one or two guys over the others. And I think that we can just follow the model and probably be all right.
Yeah. And then the next comment I kind of thought was fun too, kind of echoing that. Might fade the first game, and then once the model's updating, we can make our better educated decisions because that game, the first game, could potentially be a blowout, and then once we get more news on Philly, once we get more news on maybe Memphis, Dallas, and San Antonio, that might actually not be a bad idea. I kind of like that take.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting a few pieces from the first game, but that's not a bad idea at all.
All right, so now we'll talk about the center. So we mentioned that with Embiid out, probably going to get to a lot of Jokic, and you also mentioned kind of which center plays I would be getting to on this slate. It's tough. It is extremely tough. I think my favorite center play is Zach Collins, honestly, and I love him on FanDuel where he's power forward eligible. To me, that's just my plug and play. I don't think he's priced up enough. We saw the situation last year with him. It was just trying to get him to 30 plus minutes. And now the best bet I would say is for him to get over 30 plus minutes like he has been the whole season. Foul trouble is always, in the equation for a big, but all in all, I thought he'd be more chalk than he is. I know the spread's huge and we don't love that, but he's still projected to get 33 minutes. So that's probably my favorite center play still. But Jokic does feel like a priority as well.
Yeah, I would say it was Zach Collins. I wish his ownership was less. I wish people
Yeah.
weren't enough to get there with the higher price tag. But like everything you said is absolutely correct. And so yeah, especially on FanDuel with power forward eligibility, I'm gonna like that. But we do need someone to fill in the center spot. So
Yeah. I'm curious to see if the news shifts more ownership to Jokic and then maybe people come off at Collins a little bit more.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I would. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And I'll mention Al Horford is probably going to stay at this lowish ownership. I don't mind
Yeah.
taking shots on him, especially on DraftKings. He has the power forward eligibility. Like a lot of times, I talk about we want to play the center in the utility spot, and I don't know. Like I mean, we have Jokic, but what other center is really going to fit in our builds?
Yeah. I mean, like you're not. I want to get your take on this. Is Wemby someone that hinders DFS production to opposing bigs? Like, does JVal get a bump or not anything in this matchup?
See if I can look at that real quick. It's like I don't know
Because they
how
have
much.
three bigs. San Antonio has three bigs, kind of, with Collins, Wemby, and Johnson. So I don't know. That's weird.
It's like I feel like opposing players are kind of scared to shoot when Wemby's around, so I don't
Yeah.
know how that would be reflected in the stats. Maybe usage goes down slightly or something like that, but I mean it's definitely a plus for opposing bigs. But the problem is, I talk about this. I'm pretty sure they hate Valanciunas, and
Yeah.
so if they don't have a need to play the big body, I feel like they're going to try and play him as little as possible. But Larry Nance is out, and that's very good for Joe Bell. So.
We did get just one funny question. Least favorite center plays. I'm like, by like chalk. I don't I don't know here. And then another question was Gallinari or Derek Jones Jr. And Gallinari is pulling in as somewhat center chalk, I guess, at 14%. I guess he's fine. I think the model like Derek Jones a little bit better for forward.
Yeah, and going back to that comment about fading the first game, I think if we're playing players from the first game, we want to focus on the good players, the good real life players: Kuzma, Paolo, Franz Wagner, maybe even Jordan Poole, Cole Anthony. And then I think I think we just play the chalk value today. I don't think we have to pivot on the value. I think maybe if you want to find some low on spots, pivot to some higher price guys, and just rotate around the value that we do have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Another thing that we got, a little tidbit, is that Max is going to try to warm up. So I don't know. That's weird though, because that really matters. Because Melton, I think, is the best play on the slate. If Maxey's out, if Maxey's active, still decent, but not like a priority.
I kind of feel like Melton's going to be a really good play either way. So I think I'm going to have a bunch of him. And then if Maxey's rolled out, it just makes it even better.
With Melton, the issue really has been him closing out games this season. And so if we can bank on him potentially getting 36 minutes instead of the 30 minutes that he's been getting, he should be good. So if the game stays close, like that's 6 extra minutes that he hadn't been getting. So to your point, I would agree.
And I want to see what this spread changes to, because we don't want to predict blowouts, but this is just a very obvious spot that could definitely blow out. I mean, it's only 7 points right now in Boston's favor, which even with Maxey in, that's kind of surprising.
Yeah, if Maxey's out, that probably easily gets to double digits, right? Like,
I think so, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the forward plays here. Seems to be maybe the better of the spots. I'm just going to sort by ownership right now. That's where we're gaining a lot of the chalk. Josh Green, Derek Jones Jr., Kevin Durant, Wagner, and then Grant Williams. That's at least for DraftKings. For FanDuel, pretty much the same thing. Instead of Wagner, it's going to be Banchero instead. So, it seems to be the same message across the board. And then Zion kind of chalk on FanDuel as well.
Yeah, and I talked about maybe let's try to get to some of the lower owned studs. Pascal Siakam kind of stands out to me, still around this 8K price tag, coming in for pretty modest ownership. Kyle Kuzma, I think, is a pretty good GPP play.
Yeah, I would agree. What about Denny at all for Washington? I know we kind of said we didn't really want to get to anyone there. He's at a fair price tag, I would say.
Yeah, this is probably the appropriate price tag. I don't mind it at the super low ownership, but this mid range, the 6K ish to 7K, it's kind of awkward today since we have so much cheap value. I feel like my builds are just going to be straight up stars and studs. Keldon Johnson, I think, is the guy in the mid range I'm most interested in, along with Zach Collins. Now that you mentioned him, so.
Yeah, I think I like Keldon Johnson, especially on FanDuel. That ownership just seems way too low. Like last year, he was averaging 20 points. If you look at his preseason over and under for points, it was set at 20, which that's solely off of what he did last year. And he's only been at 17 right now. Like his production just goes up massively with him off. And he's been playing a lot better recently as well, a lot more consistent. So sure, it's the back end of back-to-back. Don't love that. But all in all, should be very safe, I would say.
I think so, yeah. And it's funny you mentioned I actually took the under preseason for his points.
I took the over. I was a fish.
Okay.
I really felt like it. But that was definitely a biased one, for sure. Good call on you.
Well, like you said, I mean, I feel like his minutes are going to come up a little bit, and they're figuring out how to play next to Wembanyama. So it's not it's not as safe by any means.
Yeah. And let's just see. Would Michael Porter Jr. be a really strong play if Aaron Gordon was ruled out again? He is starting to get priced up, though. And then vice versa, we have a cheap price tag on Aaron Gordon on FanDuel. Would you be looking at him as a play there?
Yeah, Aaron Gordon at 6,600 sounds pretty good. I mean, if he's ruled in, he's good to go. And then MPJ, didn't he have 5 assists last game? Career high 5 assists. It's kind of insane.
I did not know that. I missed that. That is very insane right there. Jeez.
It's he's had 5 assists the entire season, and then he just doubles his assist total in one game. And he kind of burned everyone on that night that Jokic was out. People went to him. He didn't do anything. And so if people aren't going to play him, I really don't mind that one as a pretty good GPP play either.
Was Murray out in the last game? Or I thought he was back, right? In the last game?
I think he played I might be thinking of 2 games ago. But it does sound right.
Yeah, so he played 22 minutes. So I just remember MPJ was a pretty consistent fantasy producer with Murray off. So I was just kind of curious there. But with one of those pieces out, whether it be Murray, Gordon, or Jokic, I think we can rely on MPJ. So if Murray or Gordon are out, I'm fine with MPJ.
And as long as one of those guys is in to help facilitate the ball to MPJ, because one of the things I said before was that he's not going to create his own shot, and he didn't. But maybe we just got lucky that he had a really bad game that night.
And then so let's see. That's someone kind of can point that out with MPJ. Not liking him pretty much with Murray back. So interesting there. I want to go ahead and refresh the data here to see if we're getting any more updates on Dallas and Philly, mostly Philly.
Let's see.
Not too much for ownership.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Marcus Morris is showing up as the best value overall, projected for 19 minutes, 0% ownership. I don't hate it. It's kind of
Is that something where the minutes could come up, though? Probably a little bit. That might be a little bit longer to update?
It could, yeah. I mean, I think that we're expecting him to start again. I mean, if they didn't start Paul Reed last time, they don't have a need to start Paul Reed against Al Horford. So they're probably
Yeah.
comfortable going with Marcus Morris and Batum again, assuming Batum is okay.
The line's at 10 now too, so it's pretty fascinating.
I wonder. Okay, so that's
That has to be with
definitely.
Maxey out,
I was gonna
right?
say, yeah, because it was only 7, even with him beat out, and they usually adjust those like pretty quick for major star news.
Mhm.
Yeah, it sounds like Vegas doesn't expect Maxey to play, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, Nick's saying that Batum's also questionable. I think, yeah, that would just make Morris a good play. That would probably make Paul Reed a pretty good option. Safer, I guess. Yeah, don't play the first game for sure. That's the takeaway right now.
You gotta love that. So the model doesn't show anyone if they're projected for less than 10 minutes, and even though we saw Mo Bamba come off the bench first, our stats
Yeah.
provider isn't giving Mo Bamba. They're probably giving him like 5 or 7 minutes or something like that. So it's just it's kind of hard to predict with Nick Nurse.
That's something though. Like, I mean, Morris is projected to start right now. Batum is projected to start right now. But if we're not going to get news that Mo is going to start, right? Like,
no, I don't think so. But it's interesting that he came off the bench before Paul Reed. I don't understand why Nick Nurse hates Paul Reed.
Well, why does every coach hate Mo Bamba? Gee,
it's frustrating. Why aren't you better at basketball?
Well, I bring that up because of the stupid take that Shaq had about comparing him to, I think it was Wemby.
They're the same.
Yeah, it's just one tries hard, one doesn't.
He might not be wrong, but it's pretty dumb take now.
It's a coaching error, though. Come on, if Mo Bamba's that good, the coaches are messing up apparently. Let's see here. Let's talk about Phoenix a little bit more in depth as well, because we do know that Booker's out. We do know that Beal's out. It's going to be super easy to fit in Kevin Durant. And the question I would have is like, would we want to fit in Kevin Durant, Kyrie? Would we want to fit in Kevin Durant, Jokic? Would we want to, I don't even know if we could, maybe fit in all three of them with an insane amount of value that we have?
Yeah, we might be able to fit in all three. Figure they add up to about 32K. That leaves 28 for 6 positions.
I'm gonna try it.
I mean, we have the value. Yeah, I will say, like I've mentioned, like trying to get to a different high-owned stud. Like KD is a fantastic play tonight. I don't think we have to try to get away from him. But I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm a little bit more interested in a couple of the other lower-owned guys that are slightly cheaper. And it's a tight spread. It's not like Denver is predicted to blow out Phoenix. So.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's kind of actually get into the lineup process of this video. First, do you want to just give a quick shout out to the Discord chat?
Yeah, we have the Discord chat coming up. Always starts about a half hour before lock, usually right after the stream ends. And it's a little bit more intimate than the YouTube chat. I guess you have any questions in there, it just feels a little bit, I don't know, pretty good community. I think Nick's handling that today, so it's a pretty good resource, I think, to use. At least you can get another person's perspective on things, but we're all using the model, and so maybe we interpret it different ways. Instructions in the description below.
Perfect. So I do want to try it first with getting the studs in there. So we'll just load up on Hardy and Green right now, and then potentially even Jones. Those are some of the better values on the slate. So I'm going to put those 3 in there first because I'm curious about this. But like, I do want to get to Melton. That's kind of the issue if we get news that Max is out.
Yeah, and hopefully, the stream's going to end in a few minutes, but I mean, the slate starts in 40 minutes. I imagine we get the Maxey news before the original lock time, hopefully. Yeah. So we probably have a few minutes to make our adjustments if that's the case.
Yeah. And so this is kind of a dummy build with those jamming in the studs. Not great, but not terrible. I don't know who the value guard play would be.
3,600 left.
Is Josh Green a guard? No, I didn't think so. Doesn't matter. People can figure that out for themselves.
Yeah.
But let's give a real kind of first look preview build here. Let's start with Melton in the shooting guard spot, and then Kyrie in the point guard spot.
Yep.
Okay. And then if you had to choose between Keldon Johnson or Zach Collins, I guess better question, who do you like more, KD or Jokic?
Jokic.
Okay. So I'm going to go Keldon, even though, well, I guess who would you rather go, Keldon or Zach Collins?
I think my preference is always going to be Keldon Johnson, especially with the lower ownership today. But Zach Collins is pretty interesting. Maybe he wants to take over with Wemby out.
Yeah, he's just a little bit cheaper. That's kind of the biggest reason. And then which Dallas value do you see as the best? Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, or would you rather go with Marcus Morris first?
What a question to ask in 2023, Marcus Morris. Right. I think I want to go with one of Grant Williams or Derek Jones Jr. first.
Okay. See, I feel like Grant's safer, but I do probably agree with you that we're not going to see the biggest uptick in production for him. We're like Lively or Jones, we probably would.
Yeah, especially if Derek Jones can play himself into 30 minutes. It's like, I think he has a higher ceiling than Grant Williams, but maybe Grant Williams will hit his median outcome more often.
Mm-hmm. We'll go Derek Jones for now. And then
we could go mega cheap with Seth Curry.
I don't hate that, actually. I really don't. Like what it takes him playing 20 minutes and then hitting 3 threes pretty much, and then getting some other stats here and there.
Yeah, just from what we've seen already this season, it seems like Jason Kidd likes him more than Jaden Hardy, which I think is incorrect, but I'm not Jason Kidd, so.
Yeah. I'm looking at his game like the only 20 minutes max, and then 15. It's just like, geez.
Yeah, it's a deep one. It just, if he's pulling a ton of ownership, then try to get away maybe and play more Jaden Hardy. But I mean, they're both going to pull a ton of ownership. Do you have any preference between these three guys, Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, Seth Curry?
Well, with Josh Green, I feel like he is probably the safest, but at the same time, I do think there's better value at the forward position, and so I probably want to play one of Seth Curry or Jaden Hardy in the guard spot or shooting guard, whatever spot available. And so, like, for this example, I mean, Seth Curry projected to get 25 minutes. I'm okay with that right now, and maybe gain a little bit of ownership leverage there. So for this example, I'm kind of fine with it, I guess.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, average salary remaining, we could probably just fit the rest of them in there. It's probably a moot point for this example because that's what the kind of salary remaining is telling us to do here.
Yeah, I mean, between Josh Green, Derek Jones, Grant Williams is slightly more expensive, but then the 3 Philadelphia guys, I mean, I think just mix them up, right?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. We'll go Morris just to mix it up a little bit so we're not too heavy on Dallas. Interesting night for sure.
And I would expect this to end up as a little bit of a chalkier build too. I feel like Keldon Johnson is probably the lowest owned piece from this build, but I mean, tonight's it's actually, like, for large field, it's like I said, it's kind of random, but if you're playing small field, then I think we can really find a good edge here.
I'm trying to find a low owned play here real quick, so I'm going to use the slider here. What is low owned though on this slate? Like 20 or 15?
Well, since, unless we're playing 2 guys under 20%, I think if we find one good player that we really like under 10%, that sounds pretty good to me.
So let's do that. Sort by OF index right now. It's Maxey, it's Brunson, it's J-Val, and I actually don't mind J-Val, I would say. Keldon Johnson's the biggest one, I would say, for DraftKings at least, too.
Yeah, with Larry Nance out, J-Val's minutes, in theory, are a little bit safer. Should get a couple extra minutes. I mentioned Pascal Siakam's coming in pretty low, and the model likes him a good amount. And then Sochan, he's a little bit too cheap on FanDuel, but he did have a career high yesterday.
Yeah, he's due to come down. And I do want to point out as well, I do think Devin Vassell as well. Like, I know he's probably a little bit too priced up for people to love. But I was looking at his like data with Wemby off the court. He like had the highest usage rate. I'm pretty sure. I would have to double check, but could be something there.
I love that Vassal call, actually. Coming in less than 10% owned, 6,500 is probably his appropriate price. So that's a great GPP call, I think.
I did start out with a lot of Spurs, so probably a little bit biased, but that's definitely adjusted now. I guess last question. Between Dallas, Philly, and the Spurs, because I do think there's good value there, is it probably 4 to 3 Dallas players, 2 to 3 Philly players, and maybe 1 Spurs player? Like I'm saying, like an optimal build tonight. Is that? And obviously we don't set these type of rules, but it seems to be that's the kind of the route to go today.
Just hearing you say it out loud sounds so gross. It's I think exactly that.
It's a weird one. All right, guys, if you have any questions, make sure to get those in. We'll be on for about 2 more minutes here. I do want to remind you guys that we do have the live stream every single day before lineup block, and the Discord chat is going to be live 30 minutes before lineup block every day. Sometimes the YouTube live start time changes here and there, but the Discord chat will be live up until lock. So make sure to be in there. Going to refresh the data one more time. If you guys don't have any questions here, we'll be getting out of here in a few seconds.
I kind of want to mention a little bit more about this first game, Orlando-Washington, since if we don't get the news before then, it seems like a lot of the field's going to Derek Lively, and we've talked about on the show before that we thought he was a pretty good play when no one was playing him. Mm-hmm. But Goga Bitadze and Daniel Gafford are coming in for very low ownership on both sides, and I think their price is very reasonable at $5,500, $5,600 on DraftKings. And so it locks up the center spot early, but I don't think there's really another center besides Jokic that we're going to be dying to play with late news. Zach Collins is interesting, but we do have the other pivots in Keldon Johnson and Vassal from the same team.
Yeah.
And so I think we can play Bitadze, Gafford, mix in some Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and Kyle Kuzma from the first game, and I think that's okay.
I don't mind that call. It's more just a bet on the game not blowing out too fast, and then those players getting some minutes, like Goga, like Gafford. And then I do want to check his Isaac. He's ruled in. Okay, so I know it's not much, but 15 minutes that could have made Goga a little bit of a better play as well.
Yeah, and it's kind of bizarre how good Orlando is, but they are good, and Washington is bad. So
Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs just dominating lately.
Dude, Cole Anthony, man. I thought they were going to have to trade Cole Anthony, but now I think they should trade Markelle Fultz.
To who? It's like,
hey, we'll take him over in LA, man. We need help.
You're right.
Vincent's not a real person.
Gabe Vincent was a real person before he got to LA, though. That's the issue.
I mean, I see him dressed nice on the bench, and he's just, he's just there.
Actually, that's probably a good fit. I would actually probably agree with that. I love it. I love it with the Lakers. It's anytime someone's available for trade, it's like, let's grab them.
I mean, he should be cheap.
Yeah. One last question. Derrick Rose. I feel like he's just a little bit priced up. Like the time to play him was last slate, and I was kicking myself for not mentioning him as a play because I hadn't written down as a play to mention. I just blanked on it. But now I feel like he's a little bit too chalk for this slate.
Yeah, my immediate reaction is that I just want to try and play as little Derrick Rose as possible. The field's not getting there that much, 25 and 34%, but I think it's possible that one of the other guard values that we talked about can do what Derrick Rose does and gives us a little more salary to spend up at another position. But if you're trying to find a run back for playing all the Dallas guys, Derrick Rose is probably the best option, just looking at the ownership.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good call. That makes sense. And if you're closing out your build on him too, I guess I'd be fine within that scenario.
Yeah, if he's the last guy in, can't be too upset. But if you do that, don't be surprised if he puts up not what he did last game.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that was the best game of the year. So
yeah.
Any final thoughts?
No, I think late news is probably going to be important. Just pay attention to the starting lineups because we already know a couple players are ruled out. I lean towards Maxey doesn't play, but maybe it's 30% that he plays right now. So
fair. Yeah, I second that, guys. Just make sure to be live before lock for each game. Make sure to be paying attention before the lineup times lock for each game because that's very crucial tonight. It's probably the most crucial it's been all season. But that's all. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.